We are moving on to our next speaker. She is Tina Lindhard from USA. She is speaking on can facilitating women's consciousness save us from falling prey to the AI-linked transhuman movement. Tina Lindhard is from International University of Professional Studies, Hawaii, USA. So, Tina, can you start your presentation by sharing the slide?
Thank you very much, and namaste to everybody, and thank you for this opportunity of talking. So let me just get my slides. Okay. Okay. So my interest in this topic was actually started in 2019 when I heard another scientist talk about the planned fourth industrial revolution, and he specified 5 different tenets. I then asked the organizers, I was a keynote speaker, if I could change the topic of my intervention, because I just didn't agree with these tenets that are being planned for humanity. And since then, we've had COVID, we've had the shutdowns, we've had vaccines. And if you start looking at the bigger picture, we find that it seems that there seems to be some sort of planned intention for the future of humanity. I'm not going to go into who at the moment, but just let's have a look at it. So the transhumanism movement rests on the idea that humans should embrace self-directed human evolution using technology to transcend their current natural state and limitations, i.e. disease, aging, and even death. This is totally contrary to spirituality, which also maintains that humans should embrace self-directed evolution, but by exploring their own consciousness and overcoming their ego personality. So how do the pundits of transhumanism hope to arrive at this? And this is through the so-called NBIC technologies: nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science. And through these different technologies, they hope that humans will be able to enjoy greater morphological freedom. They can take on new forms through prosthetics and genetic engineering, select their sexuality, or advance their cognitive capacities. And in the conference I was at, it was stressed that they even hope to replace woman's role as biological in pregnancy through creating creating artificial wombs. This project is well on the way in Netherlands. Transhumanism also involves the brain-computer interface, which could link humans to advanced artificial intelligence. So here now we're not talking about robots, but we're talking about humans becoming robots. Now the history, you have to understand where this comes from. The transhumanism as a concept was coined by Julius Huxley, an evolutionary biologist, eugenicist. He was an active member of the British Eugenic Society and president from 1959 to 1962. He was also first director of UNESCO, but his term was cut short because of his left-wing tendencies and humanism. Now, humanism sounds just so great, but let's just have a look at what's included in the Humanistic Manifesto, which was signed by also Julius Huxley. So the Humanistic Manifesto rejects theism, deism, and belief in any afterlife. The political stand sounds fantastic. It is opposition to racism, weapons of mass destruction, and support for human rights. A proposition to have an international court and the right, but now it gets sticky, the right to unrestricted contraception, abortion, divorce, and death with dignity, euthanasia, and suicide. This, incidentally, is part of the UNESCO, adopted by UNESCO. So we have to get back to what we're really talking about. And the big questions of life throughout all the ages is, who are we? How can we know reality? And what are the laws of the universe? Oops. So to get to the answer to these questions, and I say men normally proceed through questioning, and there's questions posed by the Western philosopher, the scientist, and the Eastern inner scientist. And all these questions are the same, or at least they overlap, but the methods for obtaining the answers are different. Western philosophers contemplate ideas already held by others, above all earlier philosophers of the Greek tradition, and then build on or contradict their standpoint. I've also looked into the earlier Western philosophers. I think they were also trained as inner scientists by the Egyptian priests, but this is not the time to go into it now. Scientific inquiry grew out of philosophical endeavor, and it also involves wanting to know the nature of reality and different laws. Scientists proceed similar to philosophers, but by testing hypotheses using specific methods. These results can build on or contradict research that has gone before. The results will lead to a certain level of predictability, but not necessarily to the truth. And ever so often there's a paradigm shift. Okay, then let's look at the Eastern inner scientist. They proceed with the same questions, which is known as inquiry, but they take their questions deep inside themselves and sit quietly waiting for Mother Nature to give them intuitive insights into their questions. This is a feeling-based endeavor, and as Aka says, it gives rise to intuition. So while I was researching on a paper I was doing on Paleolithic women's spirituality and its relevance to us today, I realized there's an epistemological position regarding how we women know about reality that is not being considered by scientists. Probably because science has traditionally been male-dominated, and many women work within the scientific paradigms. So let's get into what I consider as women's consciousness. Women traditionally have a unique way of knowing about reality. Through our bodies, we become aware there is a correspondence between what is happening in us and the events of a cosmic nature. And I just like to refer to Peter Marshall, who was a prior talker this morning. He said, intelligence is the ability to form beliefs about the outside world based on inductive reasoning. I would say that intelligence is the ability to form beliefs about the outside world based on experiences that we're actually having inside our bodies. And for women, this is particularly obvious, as hopefully I'll be able to show in the future slides. So Paleolithic age is 30,000 years ago. We find artwork in the caves. And I'm going to center really around the artwork in Spain, because that's where I live now. And this is where I began inquiring about the spirituality of the sign of the Spaniards, which I wanted to get to their root of where it came from. And so you have the artwork and you have what's known as the Venus figurines. Now, the Venus figurines are not found in Spain, but they are found in Europe. And I argue that women artists are sharing their own inner experiences and insights cataphatically, i.e., using images based on analogy or correspondence when speaking of the mystery behind creation. So in the 16th century, and I use Santa Teresa as an example who got away with using this type of approach, for her it was normal to consider the mystery as God. However, in the Paleolithic age, it was most likely customary for Paleolithic women to think of the mystery as the universal cosmic or great mother. And some of them probably arrived at this insight through analogy with the creative force expressing itself through their pregnant bodies. When speaking of the mystery behind creation, their use of specific images is an analogy based on correspondence. And this, of course, leads to inductive ways of understanding the outside reality. So where's my supportive evidence? Well, Paleolithic society was matrilineal or matri-focused. They were in small groups of women, of mixed gender, but there was no husband. It was the woman's brother who looked after the tribe and herself and the offspring. Sex was promiscuous, but probably highly regulated. It probably took place at the festivals that people gathered at. And when women become pregnant, she never says, I am making a baby, or the person who impregnated her is making the baby. She feels that there is a higher intelligence working through her body. And just for information, sperm was only observed through the microscope in 1677 and 1827. And here we're talking about 30,000 years ago. She is fully aware of a force operating through her body that moves and even repositions bones. It is completely independent of her will or desires. It runs the show. This can be frightening for the first-time mother unless supported by others who have gone through the experience. For women, the living mystery is alive and active in her in a really embodied way. This becomes more and more obvious during her pregnancy. And this experience must have made women, or at least some of them, wonder about the connection between their nature and the nature of the universe. Also, during her menses, she would have experienced connection with the moon. Before people used electric light at night, women temporarily synchronized their menstrual cycles with the lumens and gravimetric cycles of the moon, which gives her a direct experience between the relationship, what is happening in her body, and cosmic cycles. This title of Helfrich Foster gives the wrong impression because it's not women who are the doers, it's the forces in nature that enable the synchronization. And she is aware of this. And also in a paper on Paleolithic women's spirituality, I and several other people argue that women must have been the first people who invented a calendar system, because through the regular menstruation, she would have been able to count the moon months and observe this connection between her and what's happening in her menstruation with the moon. So she could know about the differences between dark and light cycles, not only of a monthly moon, but what take place throughout the year. So from this perspective, we can consider Paleolithic women's artwork as a pointer to this entity or mystery that is both immanent in creation at the same time as beyond duality in all definitions. And I also submit that they probably realized the creative aspect of this mystery through their pregnancies, but probably in their death, they recognized the destructive or dark phase in the cycle that is so necessary for rebirth. So let's look at some of the artwork, and we'll find this.
Can you conclude in 5 minutes?
No, I can't, but I'll try and do as best as I can.
Okay.
The female pubic area, you will see in all these different pictures of different paintings and engravings in Spain. And you will notice it's the female pubic area formed by her legs with a line through the middle, which is pointing to the uterus, which is the source of life. They know that women drew these because of the female handprints. The second and the fourth fingers in women are the same length. There's also a connection between, or women made the connection between the vulva and the goose through association with the vulva and the goose's capacity to produce eggs, its ability to travel by water, land, and air, as well as its distinctive V footprint with a line in the middle, probably made it the totem or emblematic animal, not only a Paleolithic woman from Spain, but probably a candidate for the creative force behind the manifest world. In other societies, the pre-Sumerian, we'll find Queen of the Night, and notice the pubic area and the goose's feet. And then we get to India, and we have Aditi, the celestial mother of ever-existing form, and being making her the female form of Brahma. About 20 years, I did this collage of her producing the universe. We also have the trident or the Trimuti in Indian thought, and the creative aspect of the great or cosmic universal mother expand to include the destructive aspects of nature presented by her death as the necessary part of rebirth. Certain funeral rites indicate this could have been so. And in her maintaining form, it could be through the celebration of celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes. In Indian metaphysics, Brahman is perceived as the eternal, conscious, indeducible, infinite, omnipresent, and the spiritual core of the universe. And incidentally, the swan, which is the same family as the goose, is the symbol for Brahman. So what can women's consciousness give us? It can return us to restore the reverence for the mystery that is manifesting itself through all creation. The mystery also enables us to appreciate the interconnectedness of all life. Being secure in our sexual identity is one way we can combat transhumanism. Women and men are not the same. We each have unique gifts and abilities. Women are the guardians of life. Never before in our history has it been more vital for women to assume their role with full responsibility. Once we align with our power, which is different from power over, many men will join this. The magic of maternity is what provides the genesis of our human culture. It is the principle of divine love, unity, and peace, which manifests itself in a life full of violence. In looking after the fruits of her body, a woman, before a man, develops the capacity to love beyond the limits of her own being. And Paleolithic women did not have children because out of need for agriculture, there was no agriculture. They were hunter-gatherers. And from this caring principle, all good work and life comes. What makes us human? And we've got to consider this in this day of transhumanism. And civilizations have come and gone, but I would like to suggest that the heart of a truly civilized human civilization is the human capacity to love and care for others beyond the limits of their own being. When an animal breaks a leg in the wild, they are doomed to die. But as Margaret Mead points out, 15,000 years ago, a bound femur bone shows that people were able to tend it and care for that person while it was being mended. And that's not the only indication. In Apaturca in Spain, the fossil remains of a young girl called Benjamina, they named Benjamina, who suffered from left lambdoid was found. This means that she could never have cared for herself. Her whole tribe would have had to have cared for her. This bone dates from 530,000 years ago. They chose to look after this little girl. They did not have to, they chose to. And in this day of impersonalism, we've got to choose to look after each other. It's not time we return to our human roots and start caring for each other again, rather than fearing we are too many. Each person counts and each person has a role to play. Together we can make a new future in harmony with nature, not directed by our egos and personal whims reliant on technology to transform us, but being true to ourselves and being guided by that deeper intelligence which is and behind all living beings. We are all part of this living mystery. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lindhard. It is true that you presented your thoughts in a very concise way. So now the floor is open for any questions. Anybody have any questions to Dr. King? Yeah, let's.
Yes, Maharaj, I just want to thank Dr. Tina for a fantastic presentation. Such a nice, in-depth way of presenting slowly, properly, so that we understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for recognizing.
You showed the Indian view and even the other country view, and it was a very nice way of presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Devika. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina, for adding a different dimension to this conference. I mean, till now, we did not talk about women and women's role in natural intelligence and artificial intelligence. So we are very happy and we appreciate it very much that you added this new dimension to the conference. And I appreciate the role of women, being women myself, and you also being a woman. I suppose this was absolutely necessary. It was lacking in our conference, which you have added. So I think now it is multi-dimensional approach, not only which was, sort of losing one dimension with very significant dimensions. So with that comment, I would like to ask you one thing that, it's no doubt that women have their absolutely important role in creating humanity. And I use this word, creating humanity, because you are talking about transhumanism, and you have also used a quotation. I mean, how can, it's not a quotation, but an expression, that how can humans can become human? That's the question you are raising. How humans become human? Now, here, humans, of course, include women as well. And therefore, I mean, when we talk about becoming human, we have to also think about including women, because and very often it happens that also starting from United Nations, all the attempts have been made. But I'm talking about India, still the difference between the gender and the social discrimination remains. I mean, at least apparently, perhaps we have got over of it, but if you look in the lives of women, it still remains. So, which is true not only of India, but also of the whole world. I mean, so I would like to have your comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your reflections. My question really is, what makes a human human? And I think if there are certain people, and I call them people, they are people, it's not just a force, it's happening, who are trying to create a transhuman being, which won't be human. We've got to be very clear in the beginning what makes us human. And I feel it is our caring principle. We're not into eugenics. We're not, for me at least, I'm not into eugenics. I don't think we're too many. I don't think the little girl who's got suffering from a disease should just be wiped out because she can't cope for herself. This is the basis of our society. And I think if women can really start getting our voice back and saying that the way that we're being driven into all these, into the transhumanism movement is not the type of way we want to live on this planet. It's got nothing to do with spirituality. And really, to get back to our true roots is to investigate inside, is to live and be a reflection of this incredible intelligence that's manifesting through us. So thank you. And just to let you know, I will be in India in January, hopefully, and I hope to be able to talk in universities and schools. So if anybody's interested, please contact me and I would be delighted, because youngsters have the wrong idea. Youngsters have the wrong idea about increasing their intelligence. They actually also will be made slaves. And this is very serious.
When I was coming, we welcome you to come to and visit us in our center.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Pant has a question for you.
Yeah. My question is a simple one. When you mention women consciousness and talk about motherhood. So this consciousness is a consciousness through body. So now once, say for example, when we artificially design system, takes care of this mothering process. So there is a loss of function in the body. So do you think that only through this function one realizes one's consciousness, or there is an alternative way to understand consciousness?
Thank you. It's a good question. I think, men traditionally have gone through, and I'm talking about particularly in the Indian tradition, they've explored the nature of their own consciousness, but they start with the question, who am I? How does all this work? And I think also, if you take the Egyptian and the Persian and even the ancient Greek, they sat down and investigated the nature of their own consciousness. And once you go below the thinking mind, you get into the feeling heart-mind consciousness. And that's where your intuition kicks in. But I think women went about it a different way, because we are totally aware of that force working through us. We actually used induction to reflect on the nature, induction and correspondence, to reflect on the nature of the universe. So I think we can use both. I work as an inner scientist. investigating my own consciousness. Yeah. Does that
Thank you.
answer?
Thank you, Lindhard, for your nice presentation. And we could have more discussion because of the lack of time. We have
Yeah.
still some presentations pending. So
Dhanavad Pranam. Just I want to say one thing to Dr.
Yes.
Tina. Dr. Tina, your presentation was wonderful. And thanks for this presenting about what makes human a real human. And I'm really certainly I admit that after a long period of time, I could meet a person or by Zoom who is really touched my heart. Really, I want to meet you in the January.
If I will be hopefully in India in January, please write to me and I would be delighted to meet any of you. I'll be round the Bangalore, Mysore area.
If you could give your email ID for us in the chat
I'll
box.
put it on the chat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we will.
We can continue, you all can continue discussion after the presentation because we have some talks pending.